It's almost a responsibility to take what is new in this generation. So whether it's social media, AI, virtual staging, I think it really is setting a precedent of, okay, well, what's been done in the past? Social media, again, it's all about attention. Being able to take whatever property you're working on and figuring out, how do I get more eyeballs on this? Is sales is always a numbers game.
Welcome to the Prime People Podcast. Today we have the remarkable Jade Shenker, one of the most sought after commercial real estate agents under 30, with nearly 1 billion in assets managed, celebrity clientele, and global recognition as a disruptor in the private wealth and family office space. Jade brings a fresh and bold perspective. As a star of Netflix owning Manhattan, she's not just breaking records, she's redefining them. Born into a family of real estate developers, Ivy League educated, and a champion for women in business, Jade's journey is as inspiring as it is groundbreaking. We are thrilled to have her with us today. There's a quote that you had said on Fox Business, and it said, "Technology and marketing changes over time. It's not just about showing four boring walls. It's about transforming it and showcasing what can be done with the space." And I don't know if there's a quote that explains you better than that, because you're very creative in the commercial space. How are you doing things differently when it comes to commercial real estate in New York City?
Well, I think as an overview, as somebody who is younger than most people in commercial real estate, I really believe that it's almost a responsibility to take what is new in this generation. So whether it's social media, AI, virtual staging, I think it really is setting a precedent of, okay, well, what's been done in the past? So what can I learn from the traditional way of doing things? And how do I optimize it? How do I make it better? You know, social media, again, it's all about attention.
Mhm.
You know, it would be so easy for me to just list something along with, the general consensus of prices and price per square foot, and that works and it's fantastic. However, what we're noticing is a shift in the overall wealth market. There's a lot of people in tech or in, I don't know, a bunch of different industries that now are looking for access. And rather than institutional investors who have teams of people
Of
who,
course.
their job specifically is to look at every single building, every single potential investment opportunity. And, they spend millions of dollars every year looking at those opportunities, assessing them, all of that stuff. And then you have these new people who are coming into wealth, whether it's generational wealth, whether it's, the daughter or son of somebody who established something. And it's about being able to take whatever property you're working on and figuring out, how do I get more eyeballs on this? Is sales is always a numbers game.
Mhm.
And how do I articulate the actual value of this? It'd be easy for me to just post something and be like, "Hey, look at this." But I think as a professional, and I always tell everyone, like, I'm s- a specific professional to New York City. That is my market where I know it like the back of my hand. Being so confident in that and knowing how to articulate the actual value of it is
Mhm.
very important when selling any property.
When you actually describe those two avatars of buyers, the old institutional groups that are still going to be out there and have big budgets, and the new people, I can see the new people even taking MLS listings and be like, "Well, I don't have a team, but I have ChatGPT 4.0, so I'm just going to drop it in there and say, is this a good investment?" And they're building out these tools to help them do things at speed and scale that some of the old heads don't even realize they have access to, right?
Well, completely.
Yeah.
And also too, I mean, there are a lot of buyers who, again, they're not looking at CoStar and Street Easy and Zillow.
No.
They're not. They have jobs, right? They are busy. They're doing things. And the time that they do have on their phones, they're usually looking at social media
It's true.
or Facebook or whatever it is. So or there's somebody who is on social media who then sends it to the person. It's almost like this social media is like this web of access where you're not just touching one person, you're touching maybe at least like five people. So why
Mhm.
not utilize that? So uh, about like the four walls, like I like to articulate the actual value of what four walls are, because again, I'm the professional, right? Like
Yeah.
I see markets, I see tenants, I see micro little predictions on where the economy is going. So I think it's important for us to kind of see what is the value of these four walls and articulating that in a way
Mhm.
that an investor comes in and they're like, oh wow, that's actually interesting.
And I bet if we were walking down the street in New York City, when you say you're so hyper local, there's information that you have that isn't available online as to the deals that are getting done, the inducements that are being given, stuff that you can't even see. I always say you see sold data online and consumers have access to it. That's not your value. Your value is more so the interpretation of the sold data and what does it mean to that specific person, and looking around corners for them, almost like a concierge at like the Four Seasons when you need to know the best restaurants and where to go and where to shop and all those different things, just hyper specialized in commercial real estate. Would that be somewhat accurate?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And even to add to that, when we look at comparables, so we look at sold, the sold properties, like they're what has happened in the past.
Mhm.
But when we're trying to project and run an analysis on, 5 years from now, we need to be super hyper local in understanding where the market's going. For example, there's a block that I used to live on. And I always think that when you live on a block, it makes you even more of a
Of
natural
course.
expert, or if you grow up somewhere,
Yeah.
because you see, you walk around and you see certain businesses that do well and certain businesses that don't do well.
Mhm.
And you can see, okay, well, this corner is one of the most desirable corners. If I'm not local, I see that it's a corner unit right next to the subway in West Village. That's like
Yeah.
super prime. However, I also know that there is a lot of, I would say, you know, not great things happening on that block
Sure.
specifically.
Yeah.
Uh, there's certain businesses that drive, unfortunately, there's good and bad of every neighborhood.
Of course. Yeah.
And when there's, people doing bad things on the street,
Yeah.
you,
You're
you have
talking
to.
tenant mix, right? Like I'll give you an example, and
Mhm.
I'd love your perspective on this. I'm doing a lease right now for one of my favorite clients. He sold one of his companies and he opened a longevity lounge. So like hot sauna, red light therapy, like totally that kind of vibe, right? He's actually right behind us in one of those buildings over there. I brought him to a plaza and I actually got them to bump a potential tenant that sells bread, right? And
Yeah,
this plaza is like F45. It's all fitness. It's all young people, great restaurants like that. And I told the people looking at the bread deal, I'm like, nobody eats bread anymore. Like he would be a way better tenant for you in that space, given how healthy and like crazy active the people who are already in your plaza are. And
100%.
and if you wanted to have maybe like a biker bar and a whole bunch of like leather outlet stores, maybe that's a unit mix. There's different types
Yeah.
of unit mixes, right? That's what you're talking about.
Yes, correct.
That's okay. I coughed
Excuse
at the
me.
same time, so like great timing for both of
Yeah,
us.
yeah, but completely. And sometimes it's like you have to understand what businesses do well, what businesses aren't doing well, what developments are going on. Because again, to
For
exactly
sure.
your point, if there's a new development that's being built, and you're like, okay, well, like what does this demographic typically need? Is it mostly three bedrooms? Okay, well, that means it's mostly families. Like, is there an opportunity
Hmm.
there? And there's all of these small things that being hyper localized specialists, I think, helps drive as far as like information.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's leverage. I tell people here as well when like they sign up or we have the initial meeting, like, what do you want to do and where do you want to do it? Big or
Yeah,
small, I sell them all. I'll sell everywhere. I'm like, yeah, start with like one hyper local area because also there's something that happens when you see deals all the time. It becomes easier for you to always be on top of everything
yeah,
because you just saw that leasing deal. You know who did. You talk to the broker, the relationships there. Somebody calls you. you probably have a depth of information that instantly creates a bond between you and that lead that they
Mhm.
wouldn't get if you're like, oh, I'll get back to you. Like when you can just rattle off, oh, I know the person who used to live there. That business was there, but then it closed. Like probably a lot of organic conversations are what lead to client relationships from the sounds of how you're speaking.
Oh, 100%. And trust me, I was that person who came to you. Oh, like I would have come to you and been like, I want to do everything. But realistically, like I've done that.
Yeah.
And it's a waste of time. I always think I was on a podcast recently and they asked me for advice. They're like, yeah, if, someone who's more traditional wants to get in social media. And I was like, look, maybe this isn't a popular opinion, but I think that rather than, obviously anyone could try social media and do it and do your best, right?
Mhm.
But also, like, I think that we're always so focused on getting better at what we're not good at rather than doubling down on our strengths and just collaborating.
Yeah.
Like, why are we trying to do everything? So what I do now is I collaborate with other people because I know, I have a very strong competitive advantage when it comes to marketing and ideas, creative directing. So if we have a listing that is not in, the area that I specialize in, I really try to collaborate with someone where I'm the one who's coming up with the ideas. Maybe it's my relationship.
Sure.
Um, I'm like a creative at heart. So when it comes to that, I'm like, okay, well, let me collaborate with this person who's hyper local and near market,
Smart.
and let's see what we could do.
Yeah.
I think that's like another really key point in just like in general, like agent sales. Like I think stop trying to do everything.
For
It's a
sure.
waste of time.
Yeah, I think there's, and also like if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, right? If you can find something that you enjoy, people, and it's funny that I start with all the commercial real estate stuff because most people see you, they see owning Manhattan, they see a killer social media presence, and I'm sure that's like a lot of the questions you get. When I see it, I see somebody who's actually very tactical at how they're rolling out their projects and their listings. There's a depth to the marketing that I don't necessarily think people understand because they see all the glitz and the glamour first, but I can see that you've turned that into something that you're passionate about and obviously translated that into a large platform, which kudos to you. But I think the key that I see is you've kind of been documenting your journey rather than trying to fake that you're something that you're not. And then naturally those things are going to be attracted to you. And all of a sudden you're doing the things that you've always wanted to be doing. But what was the journey like before all
Thank
of
you.
that? Like how much time was there that you were just grinding it out and kind of lining up that passion with that purpose?
I mean, I think that I'm still grinding it out.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, like I'm always trying to think, how can I how can I utilize every single tool that's out there to make my life easier so that I can double down on the things that can't be duplicated? So, like data tracing, I have like an insane off-market database that we recently started putting together. So,
Hmm.
so I really, really try to do that.
Are you talking buyers, off sellers, opportunities that you
Buyers,
have? And
sellers,
yeah,
yeah, everything. Because
yeah,
again, it helps everyone.
yeah.
And if I have a machine that's doing that at all times, I can really double down on the things that can't be replicated, which is going out, meeting clients,
Scaling the
come
unscalable, human connection. You can't scale that, right? The pop buys,
correct.
yeah, those moments.
Yeah, definitely. But in general, when you say before, do you mean before out in Manhattan or before Sirhan?
Well, I guess let's go back a couple steps
Mhm.
for the people that don't know you. What was your journey? I believe you did a lease when you were 15 or something along those lines. You wrote a deal very early on. You were involved in some like heavy zoning conversations at 19. Like, give a bit of your background of how you even got into commercial real estate.
So I'm very lucky. I grew up in a family of real estate developers. So from the moment I was, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5, my
Mhm.
dad owned a lot of buildings over here in New York, from Upper East Side to a lot. He he heavily, heavily, heavily bought in Lower Manhattan. So like East Village, Mulberry, all of that stuff. He had to do like a lot of deals with like the mafia. Like, I mean, it was he invested
Different back
then
then, right?
completely different. Where when you could buy 5 buildings for $500,000. I know. Yeah. So my
Tell him
dad
I'll give
bought.
him six.
Yeah, my grandfather had a lot in the Bronx,
Mhm.
so I was always around just real estate transactions, seeing markets, understanding like that. That was really like,
Yeah.
it's something that I don't think can be taught. Like again, whenever people ask me, I say like working for a family office or working for a small real estate company is the best thing you could do because you understand everything because like these people don't have millions of dollars to spend
Sure.
on analysts and this and that. No, it's nitty gritty, it's hustle, and that's what I grew up with. So
You probably heard a lot
uh
of negotiations, analyzing deals. Like I think of my daughter who's 11. She's probably seen more real estate than she ever thought she would at this point,
yeah,
right?
it is the coolest thing and she's gonna love that experience. And so because I'm an only child, I was always raised to learn about what owning a building and managing it, and all of that stuff. And when I was 15, that's when my dad really had me start cold calling different owners. He was teaching me how to call different people in like Texas. And we used to go through the Village Voice, which is like the OG Craigslist here in New York, and go through the for sale by owners. And I would call them 15 to try to negotiate, like, oh, well, if I put this in a contract, can we do a delayed contract? And then I would try to call them and call different buyers to see if I could flip it. Like I was doing all this. And I think in a way, my dad had me do that to practice so that I was never afraid to talk
Sure.
numbers or ask questions. And I really understood. I still have my first ever notebook when I was 15 with all the different addresses, with all of the different income expenses. I would compare like different buildings. It was so cool. And so I grew up in it. Like that was everything. Um, and then as I got older, I went to college. I was a very scholastic person,
Sure.
and I really didn't know what I wanted to do in addition to real estate. Because for college, you're like, okay, well, I tried majoring in real estate. And I remember on the screen, they're like going through all the different real estate careers. It was like real estate appraiser, it was like accountant, there's all these things. And I was like, I don't see real estate developer. I was like, why am I in this class? I've always been very like, I was like, well, do I need to be here? I'm like, I could just Google this stuff or like ask a
Yeah.
dad, like my dad's friend. I was like, I don't need this. So I switched majors. I did political science for a bit, and that was with the goal to assess different city planning. Because again, with real estate, you look at it on a very macro level, you can understand zoning, how to make cities more accessible. At the time, I was living in Florida,
Yeah.
um, so Florida's a little bit different. Like, there's not really public transportation. It's very complicated. It's great for investing. So I was kind of doing that, and I thought that was interesting. And then I ended up doing public relations. And the reason I
Mhm.
majored in public relations was because I was like, look, whatever I end up wanting to do, if I wanted to buy real estate and open up a business and operate the business, or if I wanted to collaborate, whatever it is, start a development company, I need PR in order to help me scale.
Mhm.
And I looked at it like that. So I ended up majoring in public relations. And through the grapevine of contacts, all that stuff, I ended up dating someone who had his brother was one of the number one lobbyists in all of, I would say, Florida. Um, he approached me because, again, we'd always go out, and I was always very, I post my updates on on my story, like
Okay.
market updates. I've always been very, I would say I have a variety of conversations that I always love to talk about. And he approached me and was like, Jay, do you want to run for commissioner?
Hmm.
So I started out being on the planning and zoning committee for my city at 19, and then started prepping to run for commissioner, which is they work alongside the mayor essentially.
Sure.
And I remember it just got very intense.
I can imagine.
I mean, if you think like if
Yeah.
reality TV is a different, like, that's, you have to have very high emotional stability. Politics is so much more.
Hmm.
And I saw that at 19, I couldn't even drive. I still can't drive, but still. And
Is that
and
because the people in it, is it the gamesmanship of it that like they try and throw you off, or is it just the dynamics of it? Is it the like hours you have to put in? What about it makes it so
um,
different?
I think that historically, it really is a bullying game,
Yeah.
politics.
Yeah. I
It's
could see that.
it's just all about public perception. A lot of people who run for public office, going to be honest, they're not the smartest. It's
For
typically
sure.
run by ego,
Yep.
unfortunately. Um,
Yeah.
so I
Well,
kind of
the
just saw
dynamics.
that.
So the reason I asked the question is in like commercial real estate, especially with like how the gatekeepers were the gatekeepers forever. Now there's some new
Mhm.
school. There's always like political dynamics in that space. I can only imagine like that's the entire game in politics. It's complete like House of Cards was actually more real than I think people realize in terms of the chaos and the stuff that happens on the back end, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. So I remember my emotions were just like so high, low. I was just like, all I wanted to do was just to make the city better, real
Well,
estate wise.
I'll just say what I think wherever I am. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I don't think I think you're very similar, right? I've seen quite a bit of your content and seen you in
Mhm,
different spaces, and it just seems like you say what you're actually thinking, which I don't think
mhm.
really works in politics. Tell me if I'm
No,
wrong.
no. Yeah, it needs to be filtered, filtered, filtered. And yeah, I'm just so like honest, but completely. So I ended up moving to the city and I was trying to get a job in PR because again, real estate was always something I knew. Like that was never a choice. It was never
Yeah.
never in my life was I like, oh, what do I want to do when I grow up? No, it was always real estate. But I was like, okay, how do I help that? I tried working every single job in PR, couldn't get a job for the life of me. And I was like, if anything, I'm overqualified.
Yeah.
And then, long story short, ended up anytime I applied for like a real estate job, I got it. So I just went with that, and then got to merge the two in a couple of different situations.
Cool.
And then, uh, yeah, worked with a life coach. She connected me with someone looking to sell a building. I ended up getting an accepted
Residential or
offer.
commercial building, or was it commercial
Commercial
from the
building.
jump? Okay.
Yeah, I always
Okay.
wanted to do commercial. I did stuff for my dad residentially and
Sure.
commercially.
For the family
Residential was
office, right?
super easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was like mostly marketing internationally because at that time in New York, landlords are really strict on credit.
Yeah.
And if you were international, you had no credit.
Hmm.
You could have $10 million in assets, but if you don't have any credit, a credit card here in the States, you couldn't get an apartment or it was very difficult. So
Wow.
I used that to my advantage. This was pre-COVID. I'd set up a bunch of different Facebook marketplaces, all that stuff, and got everyone to come over here to
Huh.
my dad's building. And then I started calling different landlords. I was like, hey, I have this person, their budget's like 6,000, but they need something like tomorrow. Can you make it work? And it was just through relationships. It was really natural. But then commercial
Yeah.
was crazy to me because we had a commercial space. And I was like, all right, let me hire, I don't want to say which brokerage. Let's hire a brokerage.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at the exclusive and I was like, these people get paid 4 times more than a residential broker. And when I retain them, they did a quarter of the work of the
Uh-huh.
worst residential broker. I was
Yeah.
like, what is this? And I got so mad. I was livid because I'm the one cutting the check.
Yeah. And you
Like
see it.
I was like,
I said to my commercial team the other day, I'm like, I need the secret of how people can keep a commercial sign up on a property for 4 years that's not even listed on the MLS and is getting zero exposure. I haven't seen it. It has been shopped to me one time. Like, what are they telling their client on a weekly basis? But it's unfortunate. Like the industry standard is very low, right? I think
yeah,
they just accept it because they're too busy that they think, hey, I've got a contract. It's all taken care of, but they don't see behind a lot of the smoke and mirrors.
yeah. I was just shocked, and then that's when I really started to hone in and kind of find my niche. And I loved. I mean, I think commercial real estate is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, it's so I started in commercial. I don't think I told you that. Started at
No.
yeah, I started at a small commercial. Actually, my wife tricked me into getting my license. She's the CEO, like MBA brain of Prime, our brokerage,
Hmm.
and we were a couple. So she was kind of residential. I was the commercial guy, and then she had our daughter, and she went full CEO mode. So we like our brokerage is essentially like a Navy SEAL team, exactly what you described, where I
Wow.
won't go into a territory unless I have a local expert that has local knowledge and I'll
Hmm.
deploy my system, right? A lot more attention, different strategy, whatever. But the commercial component, I always thought was super interesting because I felt the same way. I'm like, man, like we can revolutionize this industry because I get it. Like they have so much off market data. That's their value proposition is they gatekeep everything. But
Hmm.
from a marketing perspective, so much can change from a storytelling perspective. Like reaching out and helping these new CEOs that are looking to figure out how the cities are operating or where they should set up business. Like tell them the things they can't find on MLS. That's how we cut our teeth, and we ended up competing with a lot of the large nationals. Storytelling before we get into social media, you tell stories. Like I have seen some of your videos and your marketing packages. What
Thank
is
you.
your process? Like, do you sit down and like actually write out a whole storyboard before you go and create the marketing assets? I'd love to dig into a little bit of how your brain works in that aspect.
Oh my gosh. If I can be really, really honest with you, it just comes to me. Like genuinely, so on the show, I have someone who was a best friend. It's sort of like feels like, push and pull. And, not to bring her up in this scenario, but I think one of the things that we both have respected about each other is this almost like natural skill. I don't know where it comes. I have no idea where it comes from, but it's just it's almost like the understanding of what is popular at this point in time, or what makes people feel something at this point in time, which, again, because of, I think, social media, and I think people get bored quickly.
Yes.
It's not even something where I can think of an idea now and then that idea is still relevant a month from now. Because again, it's like I
Fluid.
really think, yeah, people, they get tired of things. The cycle of trends is going so much faster
It's wild.
because, yeah, everyone has access to everything. So whenever I think of an idea for, a listing, it really is like in that moment. And from the time I come up with the idea. So for example, we're probably going to sell a racket club in Arizona.
Cool.
And again, I mean, look, I can pull comps, I can do all the analytics, but it really takes a local expert to understand it. So I'm partnering with a local expert, but I'm
Your Ranch just
storyboarding.
opened up in Arizona as well, right?
Yeah, we did. Hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Uh, so, so we were on a call, and for me, I just had this like vision almost in my head. I'm like, so the negatives of it, not negatives, but
Sure.
the obstacles is that it's not in like a prime area,
Mhm.
right? It's not hasn't been operated before, or it's not currently operating. So we
Okay.
don't have any NOI.
Yeah, no, 3 years of financials, proving profit. And even if you did, like a lot of
Correct.
times when you're selling a business, they've kind of checked out if they're selling it, right? So it can be tough.
Yeah, yeah, completely. And then my brain went, I was like, wait, I was like, that's so like Amman. Like Amman, Amman like resorts. It's
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, wait, I'm like, our marketing video should be like Amman, secluded,
Hmm.
private, wellness, getaway,
Yeah. Destination.
high luxury,
Yeah.
like, all of that. And my brain
Exclusive.
started,
Yeah.
yeah,
You got
my
to put a little bit of effort to get there, right?
yeah, my brain was like, okay, cool. So, and then I was like, all right, maybe we collaborate with like some local like hotels in the area. It's like 5 acres. And I'm like brainstorming this. So I really think it just comes to me like
Yeah.
I think also it's like anyone who, and you probably feel the same way because you're super creative. It's like when you are around a certain market. So my specialty is like private wealth.
Yeah.
You kind of understand what people want and crave. So I think subconsciously you're able to come up with these ideas to help market things to that demographic.
Yeah, two things. One, so I was actually listening to you. I wasn't distracted by social media. I was telling my
No.
assistant to send you a book called The War of Art. It's just doing the same thing consistently over time, and then the muse shows up, right? And I think part of what you said before we got on the call was you're always consuming and you're kind of keeping your pulse on the figure or your finger on the pulse of pop culture, the news, obviously what's happening. But I also don't think you're defined by it because a lot of people get stuck in that consuming mode. There's a balance of consuming and creating an art, and you have to create in order to be able to do something fresh. And you probably look at social media the same way that I do, and you can almost identify when the hormosification of reels are just there's so many people doing it, it's gotten ruined, or all of the reels are the same that our agents are posting, and now they're like pouring water bottles and overflowing cups to distract you and be like, what are they even doing, or starting off the video with something not even real estate related to get your attention. And I think you're identifying that different is better than better. Like, look, I love the collaboration piece. I wrote that down
Mhm.
for every market that we're in. Like, why are we not reaching out to the top 5 local businesses that are super active on social and being like, listen, we're doing a full blown media shoot. Like, we'd love to give you some shine. Let's figure out a way to make it happen. Because I think
Yeah.
it makes the human connection, which is unscalable, so much more important than I'm just posting a reel and getting a whole bunch of views on it, right?
Yeah. I love that you wrote that down too, because like
Yeah.
I think that that's brilliant. Also, like I think it's really cool because sometimes you'll hear things that I say, and then I'll be like, wait, I did say that. That's actually a really good idea. Like, to reach out. So right now I'm kind of like in the stage of, I set a goal. I really do want to grow my social media following
Yeah, of
as well. Because again, to your point, it's like I think collaboration is great because then you capture a different audience.
course.
And then it's like, sometimes I just had a client, well, this is a couple of months ago, but he reached out to me cold. And again, I think as somebody who's like new to being on reality TV, it's still fresh where it's like it's probably somebody like you answer all of your DMs, all of your DM requests. Like that is what I do, but also there's a sense of trying to vet people a little bit more
Oh, there's some
because
crazy people out there for sure. I'm sure you deal with 10 times what
Mhm.
I get, but there's some insane people I've met on Instagram.
Exactly. And, there has been, thank goodness, like probably only like two weird situations that have
Cool.
happened in, my career so far.
Yeah.
But I remember this guy reached out to me and I was like, I don't know. It's like, wasn't sure,
His name was
because,
Justin, and now you're on his podcast. I'm just kidding.
and I ended up, taking his call. We jumped on in email and then ended up he flew here in his like private jet, one
Oh, wow.
of eight.
Oh, geez.
Um, mhm.
Private jets aren't
and
cheap.
No, no, a very successful entrepreneur. And I remember we're like in the car heading to a showing, and I was like, by the way, I was like, how did you? I was like, I would love to know how you like found out about me because he didn't know about the show.
Of course. Yeah.
And he's like, well, you did. You were on a running tour. Like you were touring one of your listings with someone, and you were running. He's like, and then my assistant sent it to me, and that's like what we're looking for. I was like, you don't say. I did this running tour with a big influencer. Her name's Kate Max or
Okay.
something. And that's how he found it because I collaborated with that influencer.
That's funny. I'm actually looking it up right now. See if I can pull it up. It's
Mhm.
on TikTok. I'll see if I can splice it in after. But it not being
Yeah,
the war of art, it's just trying stuff, and you never know what's going to stick or what's not going to stick. But I also think
yeah.
answering your DMs, being an actual human being, there's guys that I know that have massive accounts, huge influencers that it's still their voice. Like you're still talking to them and you know you're not talking to a VA or the chatbots are the worst. Like I tell my friends, turn it off. Like you'll lose people's trust. And I also think that's what goes back to people are just trying to figure out the shortcut or what works really well these days. And a lot of times you will lose the trust of the audience. If I know you're gamifying me as somebody that is choosing to be in your ecosystem, you are going to lose me so fast and you're probably never going to get me back. Versus if you are just authentically Jade on the show here in person when I saw you in New York City, there's probably a level of trust that's going to get built where you can actually be in community with people, right?
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, chatbots are like, sometimes I'm like, are you even like a human? But also, I know it's hard.
Yeah.
Like, it definitely is
Scaling for sure.
answering all the DMs, like, especially if you have a video that goes ultra viral and then it's like, DM me. Like, I know that it can be probably, difficult. Um,
You
but
ever
yeah,
have you ever
it's
heard of
just
Dan
smart.
Martell by any chance?
Maybe
I can send you two books. Buy Back Your Time. He's probably done it to the
I would
highest
love
level.
that.
Yeah, highest level I've ever seen in terms of he's very much hands are in the sauce. It's his playbook. It's his voice. But he's scaled a team to help him manage it. And I think it's okay to use systems and even AI to a certain degree. There's a company in Austin, Texas called Ways to Well that I use it as an example, where you go on their website and then there's an alien that greets you. And he's like, hi, I'm like the AI guy. And you can literally talk to him about here's my age, here's what I'm struggling with. I had a hip replacement. This is what I'm looking to accomplish. What are my options? And you know you're talking to AI. I'm okay with
Hmm.
that because you're not trying to trick me. But when I
Hmm.
call and I get an AI voice chat bot where I think I'm talking to somebody that's a human and then I realize it's a robot, I think that's where we're going to see more transparency in the next 10 years than ever before because I think people realize that this stuff is actually happening a lot more now.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a couple more minutes with you. I got to wrap you up because I know you got a very busy schedule, but I would be remiss to not ask you about owning Manhattan. So, what was that whole process like? And I know you guys just wrapped up season 2. So, just give us a
Mhm.
30,000-foot view, or all these people are going to unsubscribe if I don't ask you.
30-foot view. uh, I mean, look, it's really, 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 really hard. Like, we're not like, yes, it's reality TV, but it really is an octo documentary, meaning that it's all of our lives. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not here trying to story like, no, we filmed for 9 months,
So crazy.
right? Like
Yeah.
all like everything is, real deals that we're working on, real like hardships. And season one, I was very open about a very personal thing in my life. Going through finding out about infidelity, and season two of my life in general and season two filming is really about like, you know, going through any hardship, right? I think everybody can relate to that where they've gone through something where they didn't know if they could push through. And I think what you'll see is kind of how I dealt with the trauma. Like, I mean, I haven't seen the show, so I don't know how it's edited, but it really is just grit.
Yeah.
Like in New York City, you don't, it sounds bad, but like I think in any industry, like when you are obsessed with what you do, it's just you act differently. And I think that in anything you do, you need to be like hyper, hyper, hyper obsessed. So that's a bit of I think what people get to see with my story. I think, again, it's New York City. It's like the most difficult city in the world to achieve anything because you have all of the top performers. The rent is expensive,
For sure.
lifestyle is expensive, and at the end of the day, you're at a company with a bunch of different really competitive people. So you don't really have time to cry. Maybe a little bit, but it's kind of like, at least my perspective is, you just have to move on, move on, move on, and then you can deal with things later. So um that's a bit about me, but I really think that season two is faster as far as like there's so many stories in one.
Wow.
I think it's more dramatic. Um, and there's a lot more on the line. So the stakes are higher, I think, for everyone. So yeah, because again, I went through it, so, and I remember how stressful it was. Um, even now, I'm like, okay, finally, I'm like back to normal when I can like breathe. But when you're shooting, and it's a lot.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I think, and to be honest with you, whenever people are going through hard things, especially, I mean, internally at my team here, things have happened. I'm like, just, hey, if you want to be busy, come hang out with us. We got lots to do. And I
Yeah,
think people think they don't like to work, but a lot of times you can find yourself through the work. And New York has a beautiful kind of music and cadence to it. I remember making a comparison with Ryan years ago when I was with him, and I was like, how much it cost you guys to like stage, throw an open house? And he was telling me your numbers. I'm like, I can stage like a 5,000 square foot house here for 5 grand. I said, our open house budgets are like 2,500, whatever, but also our cost of living is very different. And like,
yeah.
it's interesting because your margins end up being similar, just the different ceilings and different floors.
Oh,
You,
100%.
you guys blitzed the charts too. I remember when the first season dropped, I laughed because I saw so many trolls in the comments. They're not real people. They're not working on deals. I'm like, I know some of these people, and I know they've been actually working on some of this stuff. So, I mean, those people are always going to be out there. But I'm excited to see season two. I know the Prime team definitely has a very special place in their heart for your whole crew. And
Thank
I
you so
know
much.
whenever they're in New York City, they always pop in and try and say hi. I would encourage everybody to go give Jade a follow. If you want to see somebody who's authentically themselves and an absolute killer at her actual craft, don't let just the media fool you. She's an excellent commercial real estate agent. I appreciate you making the time to come on the show, and hopefully we can get an update from you on another episode in the future.
Oh, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me, and really excited for everything in the future. Would love to do some business with you.
100%. We'll collab, I'm sure, in one way or another. Thanks again, Jade.
Yeah, thank you.